way and make your way over to the tower. Okay?
Yep.
When you're ready, let's go.
Up the tower here, Bath Abbey. A bit dark, as you'd expect, an old tower. Like 212 steps, I do believe. Pre-book tour here. Well, out on the top, on the ascent here, looking over Bath. Bath Abbey here. See a bit of view over the top there as well. Careful not to slip right over here. St Mark's over there. St Michael's without. With or without, of course. Usually a bit of live music down there. Got a violinist. A bit of wind here. St Swithin's over there. St Stephen's. Catholic church.
Yeah, welcome to the ringing room. This is the part of the tower where pretty much all the magic happens from. So you ring a lot of bells here from this room. So beneath us here, this whole contraption, this is where the peace doves, that beautiful display of all the doves have all prayers, about 7,000 prayers written on those doves for peace in different parts of the world, hanging from this installation here. So beneath this is normally a trapdoor. Unless you see that trapdoor, above that is another trapdoor, and above that is where all of our bells are located. So our bells here at the Abbey, they're the biggest in this county, Somerset. They all range in size and weight and in pitch, and they're all dangling. It's my favourite part of the church actually. They're all dangling in some wooden frameworks from the 1600s, which I think is amazing. So we've got three methods of ringing the bells. The first one I'm going to explain is to do with this whole contraption here. So these are the change ringing bell ropes. Change ringing is the oldest form of ringing the bells here in the UK. It's also the loudest form worldwide of ringing bells. About 95% of churches that do change ringing globally are in the UK. There's a few outside, like Episcopalian churches, Anglican churches in Australia and Canada. So there's the colonial ties, but they've become quite distinctive of an English church. So, when it's time for change ringing, you see all these blocks around the room. There's some smaller blocks around here. The bell rings, there's a bell ring per bell rope, and they have to stand on blocks. The reason is, when you start to pull on these ropes, you're actually pulling on the wheel, which rotates the bell from side to side. But our bells are so heavy that you really want to be cautious that your feet don't get caught or tangled on the bell ropes. That's why you stand up a little bit. Also a bit more leverage. So ranging from this bell rope here, the highest one up is our treble bell. That weighs 330 kilograms.
Oh, how many tons that is?
Bigger and bigger and bigger. And then this rope here
Metric,
is
of course.
our tenor bell rope. And so that is a really big bell, 1.7 tons. So think of an SUV dangling in some 400 plus year old framework.
Car.
Hasn't fallen out in a while. Touch wood. Okay, so it's time to ring the bells. We do this form of bell ringing on Monday night, around 7 p.m. for practice, and on Sundays in between church services. They all jump on the block, so say this is the tenor bell block here, they put their hand around the coloured part of the bell rope, and they pull down. Now the bell rope goes down, it spools, and it gathers and starts to come up, you catch the pull apart again, call it Sally, and you pull again. Okay, so they're rotating the wheel. There's side-to-side motion there. That's clinging and clanging, but that isn't actually chain ringing yet. What the bell ringers have to do, and this is probably the most physically demanding part, is flip the bell upside down. Once it's upside down, every single bell is upside down, they can start chain ringing. So the first scale will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in descending order.
Peel as well.
360-degree rotation with that one final pull. You think about all that rotation with all that weight, you're producing a lot of centrifugal force as the weight's pushing out. When the bell gets stopped, you do this really important piece of the contraption here. It's a timber called the stay. The clapper will hit the skirt of the bell when it stops, like that, but just way louder. So you can hear our bells ring this way for up to 3 miles away from the Abbey.
Good Lord.
Noise is thrown upwards and across the city with the angled sort of soundboards in the tower. Okay, and then one more final, final pull, and it will complete the first scale. The next scale will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there was one change in the sequence. So the bell ringers have to memorize where their bell changes into in the pattern. And if you look at the plaques around us here, you'll see lots of different events that we had our change ringers doing a thing called a full peel. So a full peel or the grandsire cater is the most complicated way to play the bells, and they will have to memorize each bell ringing team over 5,000 different changes. This goes on for hours and hours and hours. They do it for special occasions. It takes around 2.5 years to practice to do one. So the most recent one we successfully completed was for the coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla on the corner over there. The Queen Consort, I should say, actually, in 2023. And that went for 3 hours and 19 minutes with 5,003 changes. So yeah, a bit later you can have a look around and see the events. If they mess up, in other words, they play the wrong scale at the wrong time, or a bell ringer misses his change, or plays two bells played at the same time, they don't get any recognition. They failed. So it's quite a serious thing. Change ringing has been around for 1,000 years. It's a tradition that we keep doing. We haven't changed change ringing. So we've got a few other methods. Just here, we have this contraption here called the eloquent hand chime. So attached to these ropes are hammers, and when you pull on these, a hammer will strike the inside of the bell called a chime. It's around 4% of the total volume of chain ringing. Like that. It's very simple. It's quite fun because you know that it's a musical instrument. They're all in different notes, right? So you can play hymns. Rather, that's what you're meant to do. Or you can play Christmas carols around Christmas time, and that's what we're going to do soon. Advent starts the Christmas calendar starts pretty soon for us, in a few weeks actually. And but yeah, it was interesting. Just after the COVID lockdowns, one of the tour guides came up here, trying to get a bit of angst out. I think he played AC/DC's Highway to Hell. This tour guide no longer works at the Abbey. The clergy put a ban on playing music on the eloquent hand chimes for a period, and until we've been told that we're able to start playing Christmas carols again this Christmas. So we're really excited. We're all getting ready to do it. So that's the second method that we have. We're playing the bells. This has been here since 1821. It was invented by a reverend who didn't like his bell ringers very much. So he figured out a way to play them himself. There's around 6 of these dotted across Somerset. So not that many around. Pretty unique. And then, in a minute or so, you're going to hear this machine behind me, this big green machine. That's actually its name, the big green machine. And it is a machine that will play the Westminster chimes all throughout the day. You'll hear it on the tour. You'll hear it power up, and it will pull on these chords. You can see the chords on the left-hand side. There's 4 of them. And it will play 4 chimes, and these chords there are attached to hammers on the outside of the bell to do this. Saying it is 1/4. Now you'll hear 8 at 1/2, 12 at 1/4, and 16 on the hour. And then on the hour you'll hear this single chord there play our tenor bell as many times as the hour. Now this machine, before we got electricity installed here at the Abbey, used to be powered by a guy who would come in early in the morning, pull plug the crank that I'm holding here into the green machine, and he'd wind it up. In winding it up, he'd be sending these weights that are over here. They were all connected by a big chain link that would go all the way up to the very top of the tower. And over the course of 2 days, it would slowly descend like an old grandfather clock. And it would power that up. Now, it does all this while actually rotating a drive shaft, the metal drive shaft, which connects to our clock face over there. We'll go and see it very soon. And you'll see the counterweights on it. That's what's changing. Keeping them in sync with the green machine here, which is pretty cool. But now it's all done by electricity, which we're happy about. It was actually in 1979 when Bath Abbey got electricity.
Good lord.
The clock winder, he was doing this job that I just mentioned, the clock winding, for 46 years. Fred White, he retired. No one wanted his job. And that was the moment Abbey was like, electricity time. So we replaced Fred White with that little silver box on the top of the green machine, which we called Little Fred from his honor. There you go. A lot of information about bells. Hopefully you know more about bell ringing now than you probably ever thought you needed to know. Any questions?
Very interesting.
Thank you. Well, Angie, would you like to take the group into the clock?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, guys, come on in down with me. And while you want to grab it, please don't. Because there's actually a drive shaft that connects this big green machine to the clock behind us. And if you guys accidentally touch it, you may stop time, which would be very, very bad. But try not to worry too much because we'll point it out as we're going. Right, head on with me, guys. So watch
Down through here, our Australian friends here, on the tour, Bath Abbey. You've never seen this before.
up on this bench, or if you feel like being a cool kid like me, you can sit on the floor as well.
So you don't touch anything, not the clock face or anything.
There you go, so just be careful you don't accidentally bump into the drive shaft as you sit down.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay guys, so welcome to the clock face. We're currently sitting behind it in case you didn't notice. This is where we are right now in terms of the Abbey's architecture. It means we're in the north transept, so the organ is right underneath us. If the organ was playing today, the walls would be shaking. This is how close we are. It also means that we're facing the north side of the Abbey, not the west, which is the way that you guys came in today with that big massive door and the windows and the angels climbing the ladders. Instead, we're facing north. And that is because back in the 15 to 1700s, we had a very important commercial market out here. So this is where everybody went to buy their Ikeas and their Starbucks back in the oldie times. But believe it or not, they didn't all have smartphones and smartwatches and ChatGPT to tell them what the time was. So they had to rely on this big clock to know what it was. The other unique thing about our clock is to do with where it is. It's actually quite low down in comparison to other churches. And other churches usually higher up on the actual tower. And ours used to be higher up in the 1700s, but it was actually so heavy that it began to crack and crumble the tower. So they had to move it down in the 1830s. This was installed in 1834, and then this clock face from the 1890s, and it has been running smoothly ever since. So we've also got the drive shaft here that I mentioned, so that is what connects the big green machine to the clock face and all the counterweights that are working away over here. I have been told that you can tell the time from sitting inside here. I've tried, I don't know how it works, it's beyond me. I think Jamin knows, he's tried to explain it to me, I've got no clue. But if you're feeling particularly smart,
No idea here.
have a guess, I don't know. This looks like it might not be doing much, but it's actually making full rotation every hour, and that is what makes the mechanisms here move around. So, like we mentioned, we used to have a clock winder who took care of the big green machine, and he also took care of the clock here. One of his responsibilities was to manage the clock for daylight savings out. So he would come up here during British summertime when the clock moves forward an hour, and that was pretty easy. He just kind of quickly wind everything and then boom, job done. During British winter time though, when the clock moves back an hour, a little trickier. He can't wind anything backwards because that might damage the mechanism, and he can't wind it forwards by 11 hours because that's too noisy. So his only option was to come up here, hold everything, and wait for the entire hour. I know, not a very interesting job. The other not very interesting job has to do with the lights that we've got going on over here. So as you can see, we've got these LED strip lights that are very securely attached by zip ties. Before we got electricity in 1979, we would use things like candles and gas lamps to light up the clock face. But as you probably already noticed by now, well, almost entirely surrounded by wood in here, which is pretty dangerous around an open flame. So it's somebody's job to sit up here, sometimes up to 12 hours a day, and just sweat and wait and hope that it didn't catch on fire. So I, for one, am very glad that we've got electricity, because it means that's not my job anymore.
Lot of work for the verger.
Yes, exactly. Okay, I'm going to get out of the way in case you guys want to take any lovely photos. Let me know if you have any questions, and then once you're done in here, if you just want to go back into the ringing room, James, I would ask you not to do is don't accidentally pull any of the brakes here. You will set off the bells. Even if you do accidentally, you're not going to deafen yourself, but it will give you a bit of a jump scare, that's it. Is that everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay guys, so welcome to the bell chamber. This is where we have the 10 bells that Jamie was talking about downstairs. Now, I wish I could tell you these are the 10 bells we've always had here at the Abbey, but unfortunately that's not true. So this church was built in 1499, 500 years ago. Before that we had a great big cathedral here. Now when they tore down that cathedral, they just took the bells from that old church and put them in here. This worked fine for about 100 years or so, until a very unpopular king came along called King Henry VIII. Boo, he sucks, nobody likes him. He's not very popular in church circles because he started what's called the dissolution of the monasteries. So he's most famous for having 6 wives, but in order to do that first, he needed to get a divorce from his first wife. The Roman Catholic Pope wasn't a huge fan of this, so Henry broke away from the Roman Catholic Church and made his own Church of England.
Yeah.
That meant he needed a lot of money fast to defend his kingdom, and where is all the money in Tudor England? Well, it's in churches just like this. So his agent came down here in 1539 and they took basically everything.
Yeah.
They took the stained glass from the windows, they took the lead and timber from the roof, they took the stonework, and they also took the bells that we had. So for almost 100 years we were completely windowless, roofless, and bellless. Ironically enough, he ended up selling the bells to a Spanish Catholic monastery because he didn't care where the money came from. But those bells are currently at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean because the ship did meet a storm on its way.
Oh dear.
So if anybody fancies taking a dive or getting some pocket change, we wouldn't mind having our bells back. Thank you guys. So in the
Yeah,
early
folks, bit of
1600s,
information.
we finally got enough money to buy some new bells. We actually bought some old bells from the nearby town of Keynsham, but sold them to us at a suspiciously cheap price. And we found out why it was suspiciously cheap when we put them up. We started playing them and they sounded absolutely horrible. It was so bad that apparently every time we rung the bells it sounded like we were slaughtering cattle. So we got the new nickname of the Slaughterhouse of Wrath.
Oh dear.
Which isn't exactly a great reputation for a church to have, but we didn't have enough money to get them replaced, so we kept them. 100 years goes by, we finally have enough moolah to get them redone. So those 6 horrible sounding bells become the 8 amazing ones we have today. That's the 4
Praise the Lord.
alongside this here, and then the 4 along that side there. And then the last 2 bells are our newest bells up here, added in 1774. So, okay, maybe not that new, but the newest thing in here. In particular, I want to talk to you about this bell behind me. This is our tenor bell, the biggest bell that we have in the Abbey. It's also one of the biggest bells in Somerset, 1.7 tons. And like all big bells, it has a name. So does anybody know the name of the big bell in London? Big Ben? Yes, there you go. Over in Oxford, we have Great Tom. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Great Ethel. Yeah, she maybe doesn't have quite as cool a name, but she has an even cooler nickname, and that is because she's an absolute diva and she causes lots and lots of problems. She's also called a troublesome tenor. And that is because the first time in 1771, we were ringing the bells a full 360 for the King's birthday at the time, when all of a sudden the stay broke. Now the stay is the wooden part here that is responsible for keeping the bell in its wooden framework. Without that, she just started spinning round and round and round. She spun so fast that she actually broke out of the wooden framework. She crashed through the floor, she crashed through the shin, she killed everybody in the Abbey. I'm just kidding, guys. Amazingly enough, she got caught in the chamber just underneath us, between a wooden beam like this and the wall here, and she was totally fine. They looked her over, they said she put up a massive fuss, but she's okay, so they just played her again. 100 years later, she causes trouble yet again. 1869, she develops a crack, which is very, very bad for a bell. You can't ring a cracked bell at all. It meant we had to go through a very long and expensive process to get her fixed. We had to send her down through a series of trapdoors, put her on the barge, send the barge to London. The whole thing takes 9 months and a lot of money. To make sure that everything was done right, we sent our chief organist, a man called Mr. Pine, who had been playing for the Abbey for decades. So if anybody knew how to get the job done right, it was him. Well, 9 months goes by, they send Great Ethel back, we put her up, we start playing, and she sounds worse than ever before.
Oh dear.
We thought, oh no, what happened? We spent all the time and the money and we sent Mr. Pine. Well, as it turns out, Mr. Pine forgot to mention a tiny little detail to everybody. He'd gone almost completely deaf because he had been playing the organ for so long, so he just guessed at Great Ethel and he got it wrong. So we had to do the whole 9 months, a whole load of money, and Mr. Pine was allowed to quietly retire. There you go. Before we do move on, guys, anybody want to hear Great Ethel sing while we're in here?
Yeah.
Yes? Does anybody want to volunteer to ring the bell for us?
Yeah.
Yes? Do you want to do it? If you come down here, just where this lady is standing right
Ringing
now.
the bell here. Bath Abbey.
Yeah, do you see that there's like a thin red hammer that leads up to Great Ethel?
Technicality here.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to count down from 3. I want you to think of the person you like the least and just push down as hard as you can.
Okay.
Right.
Keir Starmer.
3, 2, 1. There we go, round of applause.
Yeah, there we are. Rung the bell
Bell
here.
ringing, there you go. World Heritage City.
Tallest building in Bath.
Nobody can build taller than us, so we officially have the best view.
UNESCO.
I'm just going to point out a few landmarks. So to get you guys started, if you look down in this corner, you can actually see into the Roman baths.
Yeah.
Beautiful, £40, £50, however much it is. Have a good look-see down.
But they might need the money. Roman baths.
Oh yeah.
So that's the Roman baths down there. Main highlight of Bath, of course, as well as the Abbey. City of Bath.
You might see a castle. So you've got 2 big spires.
Castle, our Latvian.
This is sham castle. Sham because it's a fake. There's actually nothing behind it. You hike up to it and it just looks
Host
terrible
here.
on the other side. But it was built in the 1700s to advertise Bath stone, which is the material that all buildings in Bath are made out of.
Bath Stone.
Great. Let us know if you guys have any questions at all. We can also take any photos.
Pulteney Bridge there.
Feel free to wander around. We've got a couple of minutes left here.
Oh, where's the castle? I think it's at the very top there. Up at the summit there. Bath Stone, of course, was bombed heavily in the war, unfortunately. Certainly evidence, as you can see down there, of course, around the bus station, rebuilt perhaps in a more pleasing style to the current architecture. Like 20 years ago, I believe, there was a big refurb. Is this looking north? This is north, isn't it? Some new builds and say later builds and historical context of Bath buildings here. West, down by the Roman baths. East over there, and then east and then south, which is over here. The only double colonnade street in the country. Double colonnades here. 18th century street. So the tour guide says here.
The water is thermal bath water. It's the average temperature of the water is about 45 degrees, and it comes out of the ground naturally over 1 million litres a day, and it still flows down through Roman drains out to the river. It fell on the Mendip Hills, which is an area south of Bath, thousands of years ago as rain, obviously, and then sunk down into the crust, and there's what they call a pennyquick fault in the geology, which forces the water up, and it naturally has flowed all that time. Now, here in this country, we get a bit worked up about fracking. You might have known what fracking is. Obviously, if fracking happened on any of the area between here and the Mendips, that would stop the water, could affect the water. So it's really, when people talk about, oh, let's do fracking for the energy, no, you know, let's preserve our natural resources as much as we can. But one of the reasons I like to bring you as far down as here is because you can hear the water here, underneath here, and if you put your hand down here, you can actually feel some of the heat. Okay, so turn around and have a look at this building behind, because this is what was the main entrance of the Theatre Royal.
Theatre Royal.
When it was first built 220 years ago, that black door was the main door, but it had a terrible fire after about 50 years, and the main entrance is now the other side. So if you go to the theatre whilst you're here, it's not this door, but you can see where the effect of the fire with that red tinging in the wall up on the left-hand side where that window is open on the left, because the heat will have brought out one of the minerals in the stone. You often get that with ancient buildings, that you get the discoloration in the stone where you had the fire. There was no cohesive fire brigade in those days. It was leather buckets up from the river. I mean, it was, you know, lucky if you didn't lose your whole property, really. But if you look along the top, you've got the Greek drama masks all along the top, and then you've got the royal emblem of King George, the lion of England, and the unicorn of Scotland, because of course we have been unified with Scotland for over 300 years. The nasty lead building behind is the scene changing, so that when you're in there, when you go to the theatre, it's very beautiful inside, they lift up the... So if you look at number 15, you can see inside of the front door there that the windows are different, aren't they? Windows that side have canopies and the window that side don't. Well, what's happened is that those windows on your right, my left, have been taken out and built in closer together, and that's to avoid paying window tax. Because the stone mullion down the middle is thin enough to... Sorry, no embarrassment. No, just talking about window tax.
1700.
It is daylight robbery. So basically, that would have been classed as one window, and this was two windows. You paid by the number of windows. Up above, it's been blocked up.
Yes.
And this particular house had a clockmaker's, and that's what the shape is at the top. There would have been a clock in there just to advertise his wares. You can't
Southern side of Queen Square.
How big it is from this angle because of the trees, but John Wood, who I briefly introduced you to in John Property, being the son of a stonemason who built that, he was a young man when he came back to Bath, and he was keen to make his mark, and he was also keen to advertise his ability, but he didn't have any money, and the corporation were interested in helping him have a development. He wanted to recreate Rome, he was mad. He wanted to recreate Rome here in Bath, and
Or visionary, huh?
he built, he negotiated with the local landlord. It was all farmland around here, and he rented the land. He then found builders and then rented for a higher rent, and with the difference he went on to take out more. He was the first speculative developer. And so this big square was quite something in the town. We're talking over 300 years ago, and when we walk up the side in a minute, as soon as it changes to green we go, because it's three ways, we need to quickly get across. But we'll get up to the top there, and you can see through the trees what looks like the palace front. From this angle it doesn't look like anything, but when we're right up to it, I won't be able to stop because there's no enough room, it's quite magnificent. And it's the first time really that happened in a town. It then got copied in other places around the country, but it was quite a wow factor. We take these things for granted now, but in those days it was quite unusual. Let's get across. Crossing over.
Palace front here. There we are. City of Bath, sights and landmarks.
I didn't lose any of my group so early on. The royal crescent. It's actually not a crescent. A crescent is half a circle, but this is the shape of half a rugby ball. It's an elliptical shape, not half a circle, but the crescent is called a crescent. Sometimes squares are called squares in Bath, and they're not squares. You don't worry about that, it's just a name. And that ditch was to stop the animals getting up to the front door. So because they didn't want to have a big obstruction that they couldn't then enjoy looking out to the hills in the 18th century, so 1760s onwards. Architecture was changing so that they were looking outwards to what they call the picturesque movement. They were looking out to the hills, to the fields, whereas early part of that, it was the squares looking in on themselves, promenading inside that area.
Contrasting architecture there, the River Avon here, and the Pulteney Bridge here. There's quaint little cafes up there, not far from Bath Abbey. Few